Chapter 8. Ancient Sumeria. There are a lot of stories revolving around the Sumerians that I will touch on, but I can't stress enough that it is your own duty and not my own, to regain all of the knowledge held within all of the writings. I am merely striking the flint within your subconscious to recall or bring an interest in learning more about your origins and purpose. The Sumerian tablets are a compilation of all that we have explored thus far in the New World perspective and more. They are arguably the oldest mass documentation of our beginnings that is in existence, older than all explained religious documents in previous chapters, and tells a wild tale of creation and destruction of mankind. Much like many other religions, there is a story of creation, higher entities overseeing the progression of mankind, and an understanding of the sources of energy in all aspects that surround us and are held within us.
The mythology. From Creasolinks.com. All myths are laced with metaphors, many leading to gods and creators as ancient alien who came to Earth to create a race called humans and what followed after that. Reality is a computer-generated consciousness hologram in which the characters it creates are programmed to believe it is real. It is a game of illusion, delusion, deluge, perception and deception, and it's about to end. Once upon a time in ancient Sumeria when humans believed in false gods, which they would never do today. Clinging to their belief in the goodness and power of their gods and wondering about their sins and the toil and strife with which they lived, the Sumerians imagined a past in which people lived in a god-created paradise. This was expressed in the same poetic tale that described the conflict between the king of Iraq and the distant town of Erech, the earliest known description in writing of a paradise and the fall of humankind. The poem describes a period when there were no creatures that threatened people, no snakes, scorpions, hyenas, or lions, a period in which humans knew no terror. There was no confusion among various people speaking different languages, with everyone praising the god Enlil in one language. Then, according to the poem, something happened that enraged the god Enki, the god of wisdom and water who had organized the earth in accordance with a general plan laid down by Enlil. The clay tablet on which the poem was written is damaged at this point, but the tablet indicates that Enki found some sort of inappropriate behavior among humans. Enki decided to put an end to the Golden Age, creating conflict, war, and a confusion of languages. On another clay tablet, surviving fragments of a poem describe the gods as having decided that humans were evil, and the gods as having created a flood, collective unconsciousness, consciousness scripts, to destroy the seed of humanity, that raged for 7 days and 7 nights. The tablet describes a huge boat commanded by Sumerian king Zistra, the last king listed on the Sumerian king list prior to the deluge. He preserved vegetation and the seed of humankind. When the storm subsided, the god Ut, the sun, came forward and shed light on heaven and earth. King Zistra opened a window on the boat and let in the light. He is subsequently recorded as the hero of the Sumerian flood epic. Enki was a deity in Sumerian mythology, later known as in Babylonian mythology. The name is of Sumerian origin and was written by means of 2 signs signifying house and water. Enki was the deity of water, intelligence, creation, and lord of the Apsa, the watery abyss. Creation myths. The main temple of Enki was the so-called Ankara, the house of the water deep and arid, which was in the wetlands of the Euphrates Valley at some distance from the Persian Gulf, the cradle of civilization. His name is possibly an epithet bestowed on him for the creation of the first man, Adam or Adipa. He was the leader of the first sons of En who came down to earth, playing a pivotal role in creating humans then saving them from the deluge. According to Sumerian mythology, Enki allowed humanity to survive the deluge designed to kill them. After Enlil and the rest of the Anunnaki decided that man would suffer total annihilation, he covertly rescued the human man Zistra by either instructing him to build some kind of a boat for his family, or by bringing him into the heavens in a magic boat. This is apparently the oldest surviving source of the Noah's Ark myth and other parallel Middle Eastern deluge myths. Flood myths. Linked to flood myths, Enki was considered a god of life and replenishment, and was often depicted with streams of water emanating from his shoulders. Alongside him were trees symbolizing the male and female aspects of nature, each holding the male and female aspects of the life essence, which he, as apparent alchemist of the gods, would masterfully mix to create several beings that would live upon the face of the earth. Family. Enki's youngest son, Enkidu, was lord of the Tree of Truth in Mesopotamia and played the role of Teth in Egypt. The ancient mystery school teachings of Teth were passed down to his initiates who became the priests. They hid the secret knowledge of creation, passing it down through the ages until their experiment was to end. Symbols. Enki's emblem was two serpents entwined on a staff, the basis for the Windkotki's symbol used by modern Western medicine, and the rod of Hermes. His symbols included a goat and a fish, which later combined into a single beast, the Capricorn, which became one of the signs of the zodiac. Enki's sacred number is 40, Me. He was the keeper of the holy powers called Me. The exact meaning of his name is not sure. The common translation is Lord of the Earth. The Sumerian is translated as Lord, He is Earth. But there are theories that Ki in this name has another origin. Apsa, Arad, meaning the good city, was one of the oldest settlements in the Euphrates Valley, and is now represented by the mounts known as Abu Sharin. In the absence of excavations on that site, we are dependent for our knowledge of beyond material found elsewhere. This is, however, sufficient to enable us to state definitely that it was a water deity, lord especially of the water under the earth, the Apsa. Whether or as some scholars prefer, represents the real pronunciation of his name we do not know. Older accounts sometimes suppose that by reason of the constant accumulation of soil in the Euphrates Valley, Arad was formerly situated on the Persian Gulf itself, as indicated by mention in Sumerian texts of its being on the Apsa, but it is now known that the opposite is true, that the waters of the Persian Gulf have been eroding the land and that the Apsa must refer to the fresh water of the marshes surrounding the city. Arad. Whether Arad at one time also played an important political role is not certain, though not improbable. At all events, the prominence of the occult led, as in the case of Nippur, to the survival of Arad as a sacred city, long after it had ceased to have any significance as a political center. Myths in which Arad figures prominently have been found in the Shorbanipal's library, indicating that Arad was regarded as the protector and teacher of mankind. He is essentially a god of civilization, and it was natural that he was also looked upon as the creator of man, and of the world in general. Traces of this view appear in the Marduk epic celebrating the achievements of this god, and the close connection between the occult at Arad and that of Marduk also follows from two considerations. The name of Marduk's sanctuary of Babylon bears the same name, Esagila, as that of Arad. Marduk is generally termed the son of who derives his powers from the voluntary abdication of the father in favor of his son. Accordingly, the incantations originally composed for the occult were re-edited by the priests of Babylon and adopted to the worship of Marduk, and, similarly, the hymns to Marduk betray traces of the transfer of attributes to Marduk which originally belonged to each. It is, however, more particularly as the third figure in the triad, the two other members of which were En and Lil, that requires his permanent place in the pantheon. To him was assigned the control of the watery element, and in this capacity he becomes the Shir Apsi, that is king of the Apsa or the deep. The Apsa was figured as the abyss of water beneath the earth, and since the gathering place of the dead, known as Arl, was situated near the confines of the Apsa, he was also designated as Enki, that is lord of that which is below, in contrast to En, who was the lord of the above or the heavens. The cult of Er extended throughout Babylonia and Assyria. We find temples and shrines erected in his honor, for instance at Nippur, Gears, Babylon, Sitra Nineveh, and the numerous epithets given to him, as well as the various forms under which the god appears, alike bear witness to the popularity which he enjoyed from the earliest to the latest period of Babylonian Assyrian history.
I know, that's a lot to take in. A lot of info about one culture, but this is still a very summarized version of what was going on, but I wanted to portray as much of this story that holds relevance to what we've already explored and show some connections between many stories in other religions/documentation, since this is, in fact, the most ancient, according to scholars, of all civilizations and documentation of their knowledge of beyond what we know. There is a lot of ancient art that goes along with the documentation. Ancient Sumerian art and documentation shows depictions of Arab Mazda, just like in Zoroastrianism, being a high deity, but is referred to in Sumerian culture as the Assyrian god Asa. Again, relating stories together creating a more well-balanced idea as to what was going on in ancient times. This is not contradictory to any other religions thereafter, but a foundation for the rest of the information being given to humanity throughout our existence. Despite the ignorance that modern man places on the minds of our ancestors, claiming that they were living their lives based on tall tales or imaginary stories, it is becoming very clear that we, modern man, are and have been, in fact, the ignorant of the times. If you were to do a bit more homework past this writing that you're reading now, or even recall from your own religious experiences/knowledge, you have noticed that there is a resemblance to stories of the past in our learnings in every aspect. Creation, energy, and goodwill towards all, and a unification between ourselves and everything around us through data/vibration transfer, which is the essence to our existence. But there's another story in the midst of all of these ancient documentation that lines up with our science that we've overlooked thus far, the Great Flood. Every religion and ancient documentation has this story. There is absolutely no denying the existence of this great catastrophe in the historic timeline. Take a look at the evolution of mankind. See something askew? Man disappears twice. What? Yeah. You can say to yourself through your own justification and disbelief, we just haven't found these missing links yet, and there's a little piece inside of you that is laughing its ass off at your own justification. Go ahead and try. Your own subconscious won't let you think or say those things without at least a little chuckle from inside of yourself. We, modern man, have dug down to the depths of this planet in search of many things over thousands and thousands of years for things like wealth, resources, answers, proof, history, water, etc. All the while uncovering everything from our recent grandparents all the way back to dinosaurs that existed millions of years before man, and haven't found the so-called missing link. The missing link is not here. You aren't going to find it. Everything on this planet was destroyed at one point. This is documented the world over, but people are insistent on looking for something that doesn't exist. Of course, I'll explain why. In the Sumerian documentation, you'll find stories of interactions with mankind and what they claim to be self-proclaimed gods. These gods, who are called the Anunnaki, are said to have came onto our planet after the original creation and evolution of mankind in its infancy stage, or the initial evolving man, the caveman that we all see on the evolution of man timeline. Within the Sumerian tablets lies the answer to man disappearing and the capability of rebuilding man. Actually, within all ancient documentation, lay this answer. However, this is somehow unacceptable to science and the mass populace of the world, because everyone needs proof. What proof is needed in order to make this clear? An actual video of the events. Haha. Most believe that the sciences and understanding that we hold today, of what makes up man and our universe, has never before been seen or understood before these modern times we live in now. I have shown you otherwise. Our ancient documenters have shown you otherwise. So, what exactly does this mean? This means, the Sumerian tablets, and some documentation coming up, have proven that they had the capability of recreating man and/or manipulating man's DNA. In the Sumerian tablets lay almost exactly how they did it. Of course, it's all written in a form that the documenters of the tablets could comprehend, but it's all there for you to read. Again, we are capable of this now in our modern times, so the idea of recreation and/or manipulation of the DNA strands within the human body isn't really that far-fetched when considering there were beings that were more highly advanced and knowledgeable than we are now, having the knowledge that we, modern man, are just now regaining, existed in the presence of humanity. Not only that, but everything was documented and pretty well preserved through time, so modern science is capable of looking at this ancient documentation and seeing how this is done. This is the reason, in many religions and ancient documentation, for the floods and destruction of everything on this planet. These entities, the Anunnaki, had been toying with man's DNA, which was against all rules of this planet. They had not only been messing with the DNA, but also mated with the females of our species, which was again, against the rules placed upon the earth. The offspring of these intergalactic sexual relations were beings that the Torah and Old Testament refer to as Nephilim. Giants among men. These Nephilim, it is said, were so large because of DNA restrictions of mankind at the time. They had to be so large to be able to embrace both the meshing of DNA between human and these self-proclaimed gods. Those in control of watching over mankind and our evolution, destroyed our planet via flood in hopes to destroy the Anunnaki who directly disobeyed the rules, creating an offspring that was not of the original intent for this planet or humanity. As these stories continue to unravel themselves before you in this writing, you'll begin to see a much bigger picture as to what is going on, not only in these ancient times, but also in our current times. I will remind you, when there is an understanding and capability of seeing our world from a higher dimensional view, time is only relevant through our perception here on the third dimensional plane through the translation of the mind. We've got one more stop to explore before we compile all of this knowledge together in one big pile of knowing to start piecing all of this together. Our next part of this exploration of existence takes us to one of the most mysterious times and places on Earth, ancient Egypt.